My son's basketball coach saved my son's life, then became the outcast for it because what he did didn't fit the school authorities' narrative. So I collected medical documentation and pulled an Uno reverse that got him arrested at school and permanently labeled. Coach Brown was legendary at our high school. 3 state championships, full ride scholarships for dozens of players, but whispers followed him everywhere. He breaks kids, a senior parent warned me at orientation, pushes too hard, crosses lines. I saw fear flash in the player's eyes when he entered the gym. My son Liam, a promising sophomore, made varsity. I thought it was a dream come true. Other parents kept their distance from coach at games, huddling together, speaking in hushed tones about incidents nobody would fully explain. The athletic director always changed the subject when concerns arose. I watched Coach Brown become the most isolated figure at school over 3 months. Teachers avoided the faculty lounge when he was there. His assistant coaches gradually requested transfers. Parents formed carpools specifically to avoid leaving kids alone with him. The isolation was systematic and brutal. Janitors cleaned around him without speaking. Cafeteria staff served him in silence. At school events, he sat alone surrounded by empty chairs. Yet contradictions emerged. He paid for equipment when kids couldn't afford it. Stayed after practice to tutor players in math. Drove students to SAT prep courses on weekends. When our point guard's father had a heart attack, Coach organized meal trains and covered their rent for 2 months. He never yelled during games, never threw chairs like other coaches, but the way players flinched at his whistle, the way conversations died when he entered, something was deeply wrong. Liam had been acting strange for weeks, withdrawn, anxious, losing weight rapidly. His ribs showed through his jersey during practice. That Friday night, everything exploded at an away game in the worst part of the city. As we pulled into the parking lot, 5 older men surrounded our team bus. One flashed a knife when Liam tried to protect a freshman teammate. The blade caught the streetlight as he waved it at the kids. Before anyone could react, Coach Brown stepped between them. The knife flashed across his forearm, opening a gash from elbow to wrist. Run, he told the team calmly while facing down 5 men alone. He didn't move, didn't retreat, just stood there bleeding, buying time. Police sirens finally scattered them. At the hospital, the whispers intensified. Instead of gratitude, the principal arrived more concerned about liability than the 40 stitches holding Coach's arm together. Why were the boys in that neighborhood? Poor judgment, putting them at risk. Parents huddled in the waiting room spinning theories. He probably knew those men, one mother said, setting himself up as a hero. Another father added, what coach takes kids to that area? The school board called an emergency meeting that night to discuss his reckless endangerment. Nobody asked why Liam had those bruises, why 5 players had lost dangerous amounts of weight, why the team's grades were plummeting. Everyone focused on blaming the man who'd saved their children rather than questioning why they needed saving. The truth erupted when Liam collapsed during practice the following week, hospitalized for severe malnutrition and exhaustion. 4 more players were hospitalized within days, all showing signs of extreme physical stress. The real story finally broke. The team captain had been running secret punishment practices at 4 a.m., forcing younger players into dangerous weight cuts, making them run until they vomited, inflicting the bruises I'd seen on Liam. He'd threatened to destroy college prospects for anyone who talked. His enforcer group included 3 other seniors who'd been systematically terrorizing the team for months. The revelation that destroyed everything, the parents knew. The captain's father was the school's biggest booster, donating hundreds of thousands annually. His mother served as school board president. They'd been protecting their son for years. Coach Brown had documented everything, filed 17 reports with administrators, recorded meetings where the principal explicitly told him to ignore team traditions or lose his job. When Coach tried going over their heads to the district, he was threatened with termination for insubordination. When he finally went to the police himself, the school placed him on administrative leave for creating a toxic environment and failing to maintain proper supervision. The system protected itself. I found Coach Brown cleaning out his office, hands trembling as he packed 20 years into cardboard boxes. His walls were covered with photos, not of trophies, but of former players at graduations, weddings, holding their own children. Letters from kids he'd helped escape poverty through basketball scholarships covered his desk. I failed them. Every bruise, every kid too scared to eat, every player I couldn't protect. I failed. The truth was crushing. Coach had spent 3 years fighting a system that chose reputation over children's lives. He showed me folders thick with ignored reports, recordings of meetings where administrators threatened his career, emails begging for help that went unanswered. He'd been planning to take everyone down with him, release everything to the media, expose the entire corrupt system that protected abusers and silenced victims. I told him he wouldn't have to go down alone anymore. Some of us were ready to help him fight. I sat in my car outside the school at 1 a.m., hands shaking as I processed everything Coach had shown me. Through the dark windows, I could see his office light still on. He was photographing documents, working fast because we both knew the school board president would have his office cleared by morning. Once word got out he wasn't going quietly, my phone buzzed. A text from Coach appeared on the screen. I typed back quickly, telling him I meant what I said about helping. His response came immediately with his home address and a warning that they'd move fast once they knew he wasn't backing down. The urgency in his message revealed something I hadn't seen before: fear. 20 minutes later, I stood in Coach's apartment, overwhelmed by what covered his walls. Player photos spanning decades, detailed timelines, practice schedules marked with red circles. He moved between stacks of evidence while explaining that the captain's mother had called him an hour ago, sweetly threatening his teaching license if he didn't reconsider his resignation. The enemy already knew. My phone lit up with a text from Liam at 2 a.m. asking where I was. Mrs. Patterson was at our house, saying she needed to talk to me about Coach Brown. My blood ran cold. Coach saw my face change and immediately understood. He grabbed a flash drive from his desk, pressing it into my hand with a warning to hide it well. They'd search everything I owned if they thought I had it. The weight of that small device made everything real. Racing home, I pulled into a gas station and hid the flash drive in my tampon box, the only place I could think of that might escape scrutiny. Mrs. Patterson's car sat in my driveway as I pulled up. Through the window, I could see Liam's terrified face. Inside, Mrs. Patterson had made herself comfortable at my kitchen table. She smiled warmly, mentioning her concern about Liam's recovery and how stress from false accusations could really set back his healing. Her voice dripped honey while delivering poison. I watched her eyes track to my purse, then my pockets, assessing whether I carried anything from Coach. She was evaluating her prey, calculating her next move. She continued talking about how I should focus on Liam's health instead of listening to disgruntled former employees with vendettas. Her hand moved under the table, texting someone while maintaining eye contact with me. After she finally left, Liam broke down completely. The captain had texted him threats about what happens to snitches' families just before his mother arrived. My son shook as he showed me the messages. Hours passed before Liam finally fell asleep. I retrieved the flash drive and took my old laptop to the garage, not trusting the house computers. The files opened to reveal videos of the 4 a.m. practices. I watched my son being forced to run until he vomited blood while the captain laughed. The evidence was more damning than I'd imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Coach. His apartment building security had called. Someone tried accessing his unit with a maintenance request at 3 a.m., but he'd already moved everything important. The next morning brought my sister's worried call. She'd heard I was having a breakdown and making wild accusations. Mrs. Patterson had already started calling extended family to plant seeds of doubt. I checked Facebook while making breakfast and found old posts where I'd praised the captain for helping Liam adjust to varsity. The grooming pattern became crystal clear. Those innocent memories were poisoned now. At the grocery store later, 3 teen parents cornered me in the cereal aisle. They expressed concern about my conspiracy theories and suggested I should focus on Liam's mental health. Their coordinated approach felt rehearsed. My boss called me into his office that afternoon. Someone had contacted him about my erratic behavior and obsession with a disgraced coach. Any more disruptions could affect my employment, he warned. The family therapist I'd scheduled for Liam called to cancel. The practice had received concerning information about my enabling of dangerous delusions. Even medical professionals were being turned against us. Desperate for allies, I drove to the hospital where other players had been treated. A sympathetic nurse agreed to speak off record, confirming that all 5 hospitalized boys showed similar abuse patterns. In the hospital parking garage, I spotted the captain's father arguing with a records clerk. He demanded to see his son's teammates' files, but she refused. Evidence was being targeted for destruction. That evening brought unexpected hope. 2 teen parents called separately, whispering that their sons wanted to talk but were terrified of losing scholarships and facing retaliation. Cracks were forming in the wall of silence. Reviewing practice schedules that night, I realized the 4 a.m. sessions coincided with my early work shifts. The captain had studied family schedules to find vulnerability windows. After weeks of careful outreach to former team members, the previous manager Sarah finally responded. She agreed to meet after verifying that my son was also victimized. We met at a McDonald's where Sarah handed over a USB drive. She'd been documenting abuse after the captain assaulted her for refusing his advances. Another victim had emerged from the shadows. The captain's mother appeared at the McDonald's with her son, attempting intimidation. Other customers started recording on their phones, forcing them to leave quickly while maintaining fake smiles. Later, Sarah texted that her parents had received a letter from Stanford recruiting saying they'd received concerning information about her character. The retaliation was immediate and devastating. Liam's best friend stopped returning calls after his parents forbid contact, telling Liam that I was going crazy like Coach Brown and might be dangerous. The isolation tactics were working exactly as intended. I recognized the pattern from Coach's evidence immediately. Isolate, discredit, pressure. I started documenting every interaction in a notebook I kept hidden behind old photo albums in the closet. The mother of a hospitalized player called me at midnight, whispering muttering frantically. Her son had finally told her everything, and she had medical records proving the abuse patterns. The documentation showed stress fractures, dehydration markers, and malnutrition consistent with extreme physical punishment. The next morning, the school counselor, Mrs. Chen, quietly pulled Liam aside after class. She told him she believed him and had been keeping her own records of concerning injuries among players. An unexpected ally had emerged from within the system. I spent hours creating encrypted cloud backups of all evidence, setting up dead man switch emails that would release everything to journalists and authorities if I didn't check in every 48 hours. The paranoia felt justified given the escalating intimidation. A police officer who coached youth sports in neighboring towns approached me privately at the gas station. He warned that the captain's father had been asking about filing harassment charges against me, giving me a heads up to be careful about my next moves. Two more players' mothers reached out through mutual friends, sharing stories of their son's deterioration. We created a secret group chat using encrypted messaging, building an alliance of parents who'd been too frightened to speak alone. I discovered the captain's Instagram account had deleted posts from specific dates, but cached versions revealed everything. He'd bragged about breaking the fresh meat with photos of exhausted players collapsed on the gym floor. The evidence kept mounting. A former player from 2 years ago contacted me after hearing rumors spreading through alumni networks. He revealed his working class family had been threatened with problems at their jobs and investigations into their immigration status when he tried to report similar abuse. The pattern went back further than anyone realized. At Liam's doctor appointment, I calmly presented the medical evidence of abuse patterns to his pediatrician. The doctor agreed to document everything properly despite mentioning she'd received pressure from above to avoid making waves. Professional integrity had won this round. The captain's father announced a sudden legal defense fund fundraiser for the team, transparently attempting to raise money for their anticipated battles. The community's wealthy families were being mobilized to protect their own. During the fundraiser event at the country club, the wife of a school board member pulled me aside near the restrooms. She confessed she'd seen her husband destroying documents in their home office and wanted to help. Inside information was finally flowing our way. At the same event, I watched the captain's mother's carefully maintained smile falter when 3 players' parents refused to shake her hand in the reception line. The facade was cracking under public scrutiny. The captain's father cornered me by the coat check, offering a donation for Liam's medical expenses if I'd sign a statement supporting Coach Brown's termination. I refused, watching his face redden with barely contained rage. That night, 5 more families joined our secret group chat, each sharing evidence they'd been too frightened to reveal before. The coalition was growing stronger by the day. Cross-referencing hospital admission times with practice schedules revealed a damning pattern. Every single hospitalization had occurred within 48 hours of what the captain called punishment sessions. The correlation was undeniable. I realized the captain's control only extended to about a dozen key families who benefited from his parents' influence. The rest of the community had been manipulated through fear and misinformation rather than actual power. Sarah's backup videos contained audio recordings that made my stomach turn. The captain could be heard describing his plans to break specific players, including Liam, while his parents' voices were audible in the background offering encouragement and suggestions. They were directly implicated. My sister called to apologize for doubting me. Mrs. Patterson had contacted her with veiled threats about legal consequences for spreading rumors, which had frightened her into initial silence. Blood had proven thicker than intimidation. Liam began therapy with a new psychologist in the next town, slowly opening up about his experiences. Each session brought new revelations that broke my heart while strengthening our bond. The healing process was beginning. Despite the rage boiling inside me at every new revelation, I maintained composure publicly. I followed Coach's advice to let them think they were winning while we built our case methodically. Patience would be our greatest weapon. The captain made a critical mistake at the gas station, approaching me with false concern about Liam's health. He mentioned the exact time of Liam's collapse, information only someone closely monitoring our family would know. The predator had revealed his knowledge. 3 nurses from different shifts independently verified that all injured players showed identical stress markers and injury patterns. They agreed to provide written statements, creating an undeniable medical documentation trail. 2 school board members quietly informed allies they would abstain from any vote about Coach Brown, signaling that the captain's mother was losing her political stranglehold on the board. The power structure was shifting. Parents began pulling their younger sons from basketball programs, citing scheduling conflicts publicly, while privately admitting they were protecting their children from potential abuse. The community was self-protecting through quiet action. Local business owners who'd reviewed the evidence began organizing privately. They agreed to pull team sponsorships unless leadership changes occurred immediately. Financial pressure was mounting from unexpected directions. Confronted at the school board meeting during public comment period, the captain's mother lost her composure. She snapped that I had no idea what I was destroying and that her son's future mattered more than conspiracy theories. The mask had slipped publicly. Several teachers approached me privately over the following days to apologize for shunning Coach Brown. They admitted they'd been threatened with negative evaluations if they'd shown any support for him. Professional vindication was arriving too late. The principal suddenly announced his early retirement at a hastily called faculty meeting. Insiders revealed he'd been given an ultimatum by district officials who'd gotten wind of the brewing scandal. Rats were abandoning the sinking ship. I learned through Sarah's continued investigation that the captain had been reported 2 years earlier by a freshman player who'd subsequently transferred schools. His parents had buried that complaint through threats and financial pressure. Prior victims were emerging. I ensured Liam's therapy continued while maintaining the public pretense of focusing solely on recovery. The protective deception allowed us to continue building our case without drawing more retaliation. 15 families now actively shared information in our encrypted chat, creating a comprehensive timeline of abuse spanning 3 years. The pattern was systematic and undeniable. The captain's increasingly desperate attempts to intimidate younger players were failing, as they found strength in numbers and parental support. His power derived from isolation was crumbling. The assistant coach who'd transferred first returned to town for a family event. He admitted privately that he'd left because he'd witnessed abuse but had been threatened with career destruction when he tried to report it. Another witness had emerged from exile. Local sports reporters began asking questions after receiving anonymous tips about the story. The school was forced to issue defensive statements that contradicted each other, drawing more attention to the inconsistencies. A tech-savvy parent who worked in IT helped obtain a court order for security footage from the school. The discovery that recordings from the dates of the 4 a.m. practices had been accidentally overwritten raised more suspicions about cover-up attempts. With the captain's Stanford early admission deadline approaching rapidly, I realized we had to act before he escaped consequences by leaving for college. The ticking clock added urgency to our efforts. During afternoon school pickup, the captain's mask slipped completely when he raised his voice at younger players who wouldn't acknowledge him. Several parents stepped protectively between their children and him, while a teacher quickly escorted him away. His composure was cracking under pressure. I understood the stakes with crystal clarity now. We had to stop the captain before he gained power at the college level, or we'd live knowing we'd enabled future victims. The weight of that responsibility drove every decision. 3 team sponsors approached me separately at the grocery store, revealing they were pulling funding after seeing the evidence we compiled. The financial impact was beginning to show in concrete ways. The captain's girlfriend, who'd been quietly gathering courage after seeing Sarah's evidence, finally broke up with him in the school parking lot. Her voice shook, but remained determined as she told him she couldn't be with someone who hurt people. Public rejection was mounting. Armed with medical records, videos, and witness statements, our parent group had assembled an undeniable case that spread through the community like wildfire. Truth was becoming impossible to suppress. The school board called an emergency meeting where the captain's mother was forced to recuse herself due to conflict of interest. Her loss of official power was a significant structural victory for our cause. Desperate to regain control, the captain's father had his lawyer send cease and desist letters to every family involved in our group. The letters threatened defamation lawsuits with detailed but false damage claims designed to intimidate. Coach Brown's lawyer responded with a devastating counter notice that listed evidence of criminal abuse and systematic cover-up. The legal threat stopped cold when faced with actual documentation. Stanford formally rescinded the captain's scholarship after receiving our documented evidence directly from multiple sources. His golden boy future evaporated in a single email notification. Parents organized a petition that gathered over 200 signatures demanding Coach Brown's reinstatement and a full investigation of the administration's failures. The community was finally speaking with one voice. Local news picked up the story after a reporter's own child revealed they'd been threatened by the captain for refusing to participate in hazing. Media pressure was adding to the mounting consequences. Our parent group formally demanded the school board president's resignation, presenting evidence of her direct knowledge and active cover-up of her son's abuse. Citizen action was working through proper channels. During public comment at the board meeting, player after player stood up to share their experiences. The culture of silence that had protected the captain for years was finally breaking completely. The captain's former girlfriend revealed something devastating during her tearful breakdown outside the gymnasium. She showed me screenshots of videos he'd shared with her, presenting the abuse sessions as entertainment. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through timestamps matching our documented incidents. Employment records obtained through a sympathetic office worker exposed another layer of corruption. The principal had given the captain master keys and security codes, explaining his access for those torture sessions. Institutional enabling ran deeper than we'd imagined. Our parent group spent the weekend compiling everything into a formal submission. We delivered copies to the district superintendent's office Monday morning, demanding immediate action. The superintendent announced a full investigation would begin that week. Community members organized a vote of no confidence in the school board president. Former allies abandoned her publicly, recognizing the political winds had shifted. Her iron grip on local power was finally loosening. The captain's desperation became visible through his social media activity. He posted rambling accusations about everyone else, making vague threats about revealing secrets. His attempts at leverage revealed he had nothing substantial to use. Against our restraining agreement, the captain appeared at Liam's therapy appointment location. Several recovering players froze in terror seeing him in the waiting room. The receptionist immediately called security while parents formed a protective barrier. Some coalition members wavered when the captain's father launched his counteroffensive. He threatened boycotts against their businesses and expensive litigation. 3 families withdrew from our group chat, testing our resolve. I found myself coordinating responses alone after other parent leaders retreated. Drawing on reserves of strength I hadn't known existed, I kept our evidence organized and our remaining members focused. Leadership emerged from necessity, not choice. Despite mounting threats to my employment and family stability, I walked into the police station with our compiled evidence. Filing formal criminal charges meant crossing a point of no return. The desk sergeant's expression changed as he reviewed our documentation. The captain's arrest happened during lunch period at school. Students watched through classroom windows as officers led him away in handcuffs. His parents arrived minutes later, their fury unleashing promises of destruction against everyone involved. An emergency community meeting was called for that evening. Every seat in the auditorium filled as word spread that truth would finally be exposed. Parents, teachers, students, and community members gathered to witness the reckoning. The captain's mother attempted damage control from the podium, spinning narratives about misunderstandings and jealous rivals. Her practiced political speech faltered when Coach Brown stood up with boxes of documentation. 3 years of meticulous record keeping spoke louder than her denials. A board member I'd never suspected of integrity shocked everyone by revealing their own investigation. They'd been documenting the president's cover-up activities for months, having already provided evidence to state investigators. The conspiracy was unraveling from within. The meeting erupted into chaos when the principal interrupted with an announcement. State education investigators would arrive tomorrow to interview staff and students. Multiple sources had submitted evidence requiring immediate intervention. Official accountability was finally arriving. I faced a choice between pursuing maximum criminal charges or accepting a plea deal. The prosecutor explained that a negotiated agreement would guarantee the captain's registration as a SX offender. Choosing protection for future victims over personal vengeance, I advocated for the deal creating permanent consequences. The captain's parents were arrested that same week for obstruction of justice and child endangerment. Their empire built on wealth and influence crumbled within hours. Powerful people discovered that money couldn't purchase immunity from consequences. Outside the police station, the captain's father made one final attempt at intimidation. Before I could react, Liam stepped between us. No longer the terrified victim, but a young man reclaiming his power. The transformation in my son made every battle worthwhile. The captain's mother's phone rang constantly as she tried rallying support. One by one, her contacts blocked her number. Social isolation replaced the power she'd wielded through fear. Her influence evaporated as completely as morning mist. Coach Brown received reinstatement with full back pay and a formal apology from the district. Instead of returning to coaching, he announced plans to establish a nonprofit organization. His focus shifted from winning games to protecting young athletes from abuse. During a private mediation session mandated by the court, the captain's parents finally acknowledged their son's actions. They begged for forgiveness I couldn't yet give. Some wounds require more time than legal proceedings allow. The school implemented new safeguards, including mandatory reporting training and parent oversight committees. The toxic culture that enabled abuse was systematically dismantled. Real change emerged from community pressure and documented failures. Liam transferred to a different school where he could heal without daily reminders. I watched from the stands as he tentatively returned to basketball. Other survivor parents sat nearby, our shared experience creating an unspoken bond of understanding. 6 months after everything concluded, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside, a letter from a player at another school thanked us for courage that inspired him to report his own abuser. Our story had rippled outward, creating change beyond our immediate community. I accepted a position on Coach Brown's nonprofit board, channeling hard-won knowledge into protecting others. The office walls displayed photos of thriving young athletes, not trophies but lives saved from abuse. Each smiling face represented a child who wouldn't suffer in silence. The captain served his sentence while permanently registered as an offender. His parents relocated to another state after losing civil suits filed by victim families. Their disgrace was complete, their influence forever broken. Liam began mentoring younger players about recognizing and reporting abuse. His transformation from victim to advocate showed how trauma could become purpose. He taught them that speaking up required courage, but silence enabled monsters. Our community emerged forever changed by truth and collective courage. Parents paid closer attention, administrators faced real oversight, and children learned their voices mattered. The game they loved was finally safe to play again. Standing in Coach Brown's nonprofit office a year later, I realized our victory wasn't measured in championships or trophies. Success meant children's laughter returning to gymnasiums, players trusting their coaches, and parents knowing their kids were protected. We'd ensured no coach would ever again fight alone against systematic abuse. The cost was innocence lost, but the reward was purpose found.